please consider sponsoring me on Patreon. Link is in the description. You'll be helping me to build open source innovation automation solutions and also develop a low-cost 3D metal printing project as documented on my other YouTube channel, Calabao CNC. Thank you. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and get this project started. The tools that you're going to need to follow along and do these projects, at least the tools that I've chosen to use. I'm using Atom, which is an open source text editor, sort of like a development environment. It's very similar to VS Code, which is another very popular system. You could actually use either one. They're kind of interchangeable, but this is my preference. I also use Notepad++ as another editor. I use ConEMU as a Windows terminal, sort of like a PowerShell bash, and it has tabs, so you can. It's got a lot of stuff there that you can use. I also use. You're going to need Node.js for sure. You can pick your own console terminal, whatever PowerShell window that you prefer. That's just the one that I prefer because it has the features that I like. Like I said, you'll need Node.js, so you can go ahead and download that and install it. You'll need Git so that we can manage the Git account and clone the repo once we actually create the repo. I'm going to show you. I'm going to actually create the repo here on this episode. We'll see how that's done, and there's a bunch of other videos about installing and using these, so I'm not going to worry too much about that, and I'll assume that you know how to do that. So let's go ahead and get started right away with Atom. First of all, you're going to need the plugins. So I have a number of plugins that we're going to install first before we do anything else. Packages, settings, install packages and themes. So the packages you're going to need to install are, or at least the ones that I use, you can, maybe there are different versions that you prefer, but Atom Turn.js, and feel free to add comments if you think there's a better version that I should use, and you can certainly do that. And I'm going to pause the videos while we're actually doing the installs, and I'll come back as I do each one of them. Okay, so the next one you're going to need is a plugin called Doc Blocker. I don't know why it's not typing. Doc Blocker. Here it is right here. Okay, so another one I use is a plugin called ES6-JavaScript. There it is right there. And the next one I'm going to install is called GoToDefinition. GoToDefinition. And the next one is called HyperClick. And it helps with navigating around the code. And I also use this one to, we're technically not going to have any of this in this particular framework, but I still install it. It's called Language View. This is usually if you're going to be working with view files. Another important one to install is Minimap, which gives you a little miniature map of your file off on the right. And finally, I install a plugin called Navigate. And I probably don't even use all these to their full potential. So again, feel free to add comments if you think there's a better way I can use these plugins. Okay, so with all those plugins installed, I also have installed Notepad++. And there's a couple plugins I install here as well. So I just go to your plugin admin, and what I did was I searched for XML tools, and it should be here. I think I've already installed it, but there's also JS tools. I think that one is also showing up as installed. So what essentially, once you install them, there's a JS tool and XML tools. So once you install both of those, you'll get these little menus that let you, format and beautify JS code. And once we get into writing the framework, it's going to be generating a lot of JS data, JSON data. So you want to be able to format that JSON data. And XML tools, we're going to be working with some XML files. So you want to make sure you be able to format that and check for debug and other things. There's also got some stuff here, XPath expressions, so you can use that to debug stuff. You can copy and paste HTML DOM into here, and then do XPath expressions and debug your XPath or CSS expressions here. So those are quite powerful, and I would highly recommend them. Also, another thing that I changed, maybe you like this, maybe you don't, I don't know, but I changed my theme to deep black because I like the dark black background, deep background, or dark themed application. So at that point, I think we're ready to get started. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and create the project. At this point, I've got my command prompt open to my E drive and the E drive root. So I'm just going to go ahead and do npm init cafe royale, which is going to be the name of this framework. Oops, hold on just a second. Okay, so I just obviously did that wrong. CLS. And let's just go. I'm going to go ahead and create the project now. So I'm on my E drive, and we've got the E drive root here. So I'm just going to go ahead and md cafe royale, which is going to be the name of our project. And let's cd into that. Okay. And we just go npm init, which will initialize the project. Yes, that's the package name. Sure, I'll start with that version. Okay, description, and we'll say a modern automation framework. And we can always update that later. Entry point, we'll stick with index.js for now. Test command, I'm not going to worry about that. Git repository, we can deal with that later. Keywords, same thing. Author, myself. License, I'm going to worry about the license later. And I've got the guy that's helping me with that, so we'll make sure that we're doing what we need to do so that we can try to leverage some commercial value out of this. Maybe not a lot, but just a little bit. I mean, this is an open source project after all. So is this okay? Yes, that'll be just fine. EIR. And there's our package.json. And I'm going to go ahead and go clean that up, and we're going to get this started at this point. So we'll go ahead and get things opened up in Atom. Let's do that right now. Settings are done. Open project. Open folder, and we know it's on the E drive. Cafe Royale. There we go. Okay, so there's our package.json, and this is the beginning of the very beginning of the project. So let's go ahead and see what we're going to have to do next. All right, so I guess the very first thing we need to do is make sure that we get this set up on the repo. So I'm going to go into GitHub, and I'm going to go create a new repo. I'm going to call it what the project name is, Cafe Royale. Okay, description, and we can just take this, copy paste that over to here. I'll make it public. Sure, we'll add a README. We can add a get ignore, and I'll choose a license. And right now I'm going to leave it as none, but we'll upload one later. Actually, you know what? No, I'll put it as an MIT license for right now, but I think that's going to be changing. So we're going to create that repository. All right, so now the repository is set up. This is how I'm going to clone it. And I've got the project here. So I've got to copy this first, and then we're going to wipe that out. I guess I can't wipe it out because this is open right now. Okay, let's close that. I need to get out of here. Okay, and wipe that out. Ooh, don't want to wipe out everything. No. Okay, kill that. This is the backup. Now we're going to clone it. Git clone Cafe Royale. There, so that cloned that. Now we just have to copy this over to here. And this can now go. And we're going to check this. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and do a git status. We've got our change, and git add, git status again, git commit -m, start the project. Git status. Okay, well, I've got to set up my stuff here. Git config global and user.email. Okay, git config global user.name. And git, is this committed already? Git push. There it goes. There it is. Okay, so now if we go to here, code, and there's our changes. So the project has officially started. There's a few things we're going to have to go ahead and get started doing to really get things moving. First of all, we need to set up the project folder structure. So let me bring up Atom again. Automatically loaded into Cafe Royale. That's good. All these messages come up. Okay. And now I think we're ready to move on to the next level. We need to set up our folder structure, our project folder structure. So let's go ahead and get that set up here. All right, so first things first, we need, we're going to need some folders here. First of all, we're going to need a source folder, which is where most of our stuff's going to go as far as actual source code. We're probably going to have a bin folder for when we package our ES6 syntax code using Babel. It will pre-compile that code into Common Java using the bin folder. And then we're of course also going to need a release folder. So that is where when we actually have this entire framework and build a release, it's going to package everything up and put it in a zip file and package that in here. Of course, we're going to have node modules, and there's going to be a few other things here as well. So, but this sort of gets things started a little bit. And the very first thing I think is to change the init for this main. This is going to change. First of all, I want to change it to application.js. And I want the path to be in the source folder. We're going to make another subfolder called application, and then we're going to have another subfolder. Well, actually, should I? Yeah, we'll leave it as application because what we're going to be building first is a runner. And a runner is technically, like a test runner, is technically an application. So we're going to continue to build this as an application. And I'm actually basing this a lot of this is going to be based off of my my MIT licensed open source repo called Node.js app, which was sort of like a sandbox for me to build out the application framework as a test bed. Now that I know exactly how to build it, this is what we're going to basically going to re-implement that architecture here. There'll be a few little differences here and there because we want to be specific, but I'm going to call it. It's going to be Cafe Royale again here. It's another folder with the same name and application.js. Okay, so I've saved that, and let's come back over here. We need to create those folders, so we're going to have an application folder, and I'm doing this because we're actually going to have another folder here for the framework. That way pieces of the framework or the main components of the framework can be reused, and applications is sort of like the applied use of that framework. And then inside here we'll have a Cafe Royale, and there's going to be, this is actually going to be, I guess we'll call it the runner. There'll be Cafe Royale runner, and we'll need to change that here. So, because we're going to have different types of applications that are under this. So Cafe Royale is one of them. That'll be the actual test runner. Then there's going to be the Cafe Royale, like the execution layer, which is a little bit lower. It's a little bit closer to the actual Test Cafe, and Test Cafe is the actual, like the browser interaction level execution engine. But we're going to have an intermediary, which is going to be sort of like the framework implementation piece, whereas the runner is more like what executes those scripts. And then there's going to be another application inside of here that's also going to be basically a builder, so we can build this runner. It'll be like a compiler for this runner, and it'll be able to compile other stuff as well. Now, Test Cafe doesn't really need a compiler. The way it works, it's a little bit different. But the runner is going to be it's in order to run it, it's required to write it in Java Common. But because we're writing it in ES6, we're going to need to compile it using Babel. So that's why I'm setting this up. But there's going to be other ones. This will be the main entry point to the application. And because of that, we're going to need to, so we got this runner, and then this coming back up to the root of the folder. This, let's see here, source, where did it go? Oh, we didn't have it yet. We haven't created the file. So just go into source, application, Cafe Royale, and then we're going to create a new file. We'll just do it right from here because this is updated. Application, and we're going to new file and application.js. Okay, so we've got our application.js file, and I think we're ready to start getting things going. Now, this is going to be, this will be a little bit very similar to the Node.js app application repo that I've built, because we're just building this as the runner. So it's going to have command line parsing, and it'll basically have its own there'll be an option to have an interactive command prompt where you can go in and execute inside this. So let's go ahead and get that piece started. But actually, wait a minute. No, there's another thing. There's some other things we have to do here. Back to the package.json, where we need to start setting up our scripts. So we've got our test script here, which is also going to be important because we can leverage this application.js, or we can write another application to unit test all of our framework. So, and there's going to be some stuff where you're actually going to see that happen. And some of that will actually be built into the builder file. So we're going to see that as well. It's pretty cool. I've got some interesting stuff to share there. But we are going to need, I'm not going to need this test, at least not for right now, but we are going to need a version, a standard version, which is a plugin that's going to be installed and built here. So VERS. This is part of a script that we're going to build, and we just call this a standard version. And let's see here. Then we do a -m, and there are probably several different ways to configure this, but this is just how I'm going to do it for now. And again, if there's a better way of doing it, feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to consider alternatives. So, and then there's a %s, and another backslash with another double quotes. Okay. And we don't have anything else other than that, so that should actually be good. I need to install that, so I need to come over here and do npm install standard version. Okay, we're going to go ahead and install that. I probably should install it and save it as global. Or maybe I should install this as a dev dependency. Yes, I should. So let me go back and do that. Dash save, I think it's dev, or is it double? I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. I think this will add it as a dev dependency, which I guess I can just move it. Yes, there. So it moved it as a dev dependency, which is what I want. And standard version, that'll be good. That's good configuration. So there we go. So we've got that set up. Let's see here. What else do we need? I know we're going to need like Babel node and okay, another good important one we're going to need is npm install JS doc, and so that way we can document all of our stuff. And I'll do the same thing, save dev. Okay, that way we can build a script for building our documentation, which is also going to be part of our build cycle. So that added as a dev dependency as well. Perfect. Okay, let's keep this going. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add these this JS docs. I'll just call it docs and put it here like this: JS doc -c JS doc.json. Okay, so that'll generate that, which is really good. I think I need to come back up here and add this. There we go. There's another thing I'm going to need to add, which is the repository and a few other little meta information. Let's see here. We got the author. There's myself, and then we need. Let's see here. I guess no, not that. Sorry, I'm getting a little sidetracked here. I do need to get the repository information, so let me go get that as well. The repository is, let's copy that, and I need to set up the repository in package.json, repository, okay, and we're going to we'll just call type, the type of the repository is of course Git, so we anticipated that, and URL, which should be Git plus that. So I think that covers us there. Make sure I do this so we don't screw that up. Okay, all right, so now we've updated this. We've got our repository, we've got our version control, we've got a docs. This is going to allow us to generate change logs and change management. And then there's, well, ultimately I'm going to need to have a link to bugs and homepage and some other stuff. But this is sort of like the basic shell, so let's just go with that. I've saved that, and we got our application.js. And I think it's probably next to start getting this so it can actually run. So let me go ahead and just put these changes in. Git status. Yep, we got some new folders. The package.json, everything's there. Git add. Okay. Oops, I guess we got a bunch of stuff. I think I probably need to do an npm install. Yeah, it's going to put a bunch of this stuff. Or I may have already done npm install. Looks like it did. Okay, we'll let this go for a little bit. Okay, so now that that's done, let's see what we've got here. Git status. That should go quick. Yep. And git add. Git status again. Git commit. Set up package.json and dependencies. Sure I can spell correctly. Okay. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit. There's a whole bunch of stuff to add. There it goes. Git push. Okay. And actually, I'm going to be removing all. I think it just added, it added all of these node modules, which I actually want it to ignore. It should have added ignore file. I don't think it did, but there needs to be an ignore file. So we are going to go ahead and get that added in right away so that we don't have all of that stuff. And that way I can delete all that, the node modules. New file, dot git ignore. Okay, and then this is kind of what we're going to need to have on our get ignore file. It's just going to be node modules and node modules. That way we don't have any chances of any folders or any subfolders getting included in the repo. All right, so let me clean that out of the repo. We'll do git status, git add, git status, git commit, adding a git ignore file to ignore the node modules folder. Okay. Git push. All right, so now that that's in the repo, I should be able to come back over here, go to this code, we'll refresh it, and I can wipe out. Well, I'll just have to do it from here. Let me go ahead and wipe it out from here, and then we'll do a reinstall. Okay, back up from the source to the node modules. We're going to wipe all of this stuff out. And actually, did this finish? Okay. So I might actually need to remove this git ignore for just a second. Let's pull it back up here. Don't save. Okay. That way it actually git status, git add. It'll recognize that I need to delete those, and then we'll add that git ignore back in. Git status, git commit -m the entire contents of the node modules folder. Git push. Okay. That's better. Now that should clean that up. And then we'll come back over here and pull this back in. Git status, git add. Repo. There we go. Git status, git push. All right. npm install. That way it installs everything all over again, and it should ignore whatever it installed. Okay, so there we go. Perfect. All right. That's what we needed. Okay, so next I'm going to start fleshing out this application.js with very basics so that we can actually start to build out a little bit more of our framework architecture, and we'll start to see some of the other folders and structures come together. All right. If you find this video helpful, please click the like button below and click the subscribe button and the bell to be notified when new videos are published. This also helps me out and lets YouTube know that you enjoy my videos. Thank you very much.